"Can I sit with you?" the one-legged girl asked the Mafia boss. His answer shocked her. Blood dripped onto designer shoes as she stumbled toward the deadliest man in the room. "Can I sit with you?" The nightclub went silent. Jack Pearson, 47 confirmed kills, 0 mercy, stared at the one-legged girl bleeding onto his table. Every criminal held their breath. He never showed weakness, never protected strangers, never stood for anyone. But his body moved without permission. He stood, draped his leather jacket over her shaking shoulders, and said 2 words that would cost him everything. "You're safe now." The girl didn't know she'd just asked the Reaper for sanctuary. And he didn't know this broken ballerina would make him choose between his empire and his soul. Before we start, I need to say something that might sound desperate because honestly, it is. You're about to hear a story about a one-legged ballerina who asked a killer for mercy and got love instead. A story about a man with 47 kills who walked away from an empire for a 22-year-old girl everyone said he'd destroy. But small creators like me, we're invisible unless you make us visible. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for 2 clicks. Subscribe and like. Do it now before the story starts, as an investment in what's coming. Because if this story about choosing love over power, humanity over violence delivers, and I promise you it will, I need to know you'll help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Tell me in the comment section where you're watching from. Make me feel like this matters, like I'm not shouting into the void. You clicked here because a bleeding girl asked a Mafia boss if she could sit down. Now give me a reason to keep creating stories that make you feel alive. Ready? Here we go.
Maria's lungs burned as she pushed through the nightclub's heavy door, her prosthetic leg screaming with every step. Blood from the cut on her temple dripped onto her torn dress, the stage costume she'd worn beneath her coat, the one she couldn't afford to replace. 3 men had cornered her 6 blocks away, hands grabbing, voices promising violence. She'd fought, escaped, barely. Now she stood in hell's waiting room, searching for sanctuary. The bass pounded through her chest as bodies moved in shadows, expensive suits and designer dresses mingling with the scent of cigars and champagne. This wasn't a place for people like her. This was Pearson territory. Criminal royalty playing at civilization. But the street behind her was worse. The bouncer materialized from the darkness, his bulk blocking her path. "This isn't a charity, sweetheart." His eyes lingered on her torn dress, her bleeding face, her prosthetic leg. "Move along. Please," Maria whispered. "I just need out." She stumbled deeper into the club, desperation overriding shame. The first table, gang members in leather, tattoos crawling up their necks, looked up as she approached. One laughed, nudging his companion. "Check it out. Broken Barbie looking for Prince Charming. How much for a lap dance?" Another called. "Do we get a discount since you're only got one real leg?" Their laughter followed her as she fled. The second table held men in business suits counting pills into baggies with clinical precision. Drug dealers treating their work like accountants. She opened her mouth to ask, but their cold stares stopped her. One shook his head slowly. A warning. She moved on. At the third table, money launderers paused their quiet conversation as she approached. An older man with silver hair assessed her with the calculation of someone who measured value in dollars. "Bad luck," he said flatly. "That's what you are. Don't bring your trouble here." Each rejection landed like a physical blow. Her vision blurred, tears or blood, she couldn't tell anymore. The room tilted. The stage beneath her feet solid and sure. Alex spinning her in their final lift. His hands strong and certain. Then the groaning, wood splintering, the world dropping away. His scream. The crushing weight on her leg. Darkness. Pain. Waking up in a hospital bed to learn her dance partner blamed her. Her career was over, her leg was gone. Maria gasped, pulling herself back to the present. To the nightclub. To the danger hunting her. Those 3 men could walk through the door any second. Find her. Finish what they'd started. She scanned the room with panic-sharp vision, searching for any refuge. Then she saw him. VIP section. Corner booth bathed in shadow. A man sat alone, tattooed arms resting on the table like coiled weapons. Early 40s, hard lines carved into his face, eyes that looked like they'd seen too much and felt too little. The space around him was conspicuously empty. 5 tables, all vacant, as if proximity alone might be fatal. Jack Pearson. The Reaper. People whispered about him in voices that shook. 47 confirmed kills. No mercy. No emotion. Just cold, calculated violence wrapped in expensive suits and ink-covered skin. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But her leg was already carrying her forward. Toward the most dangerous man in the room. Toward the killer everyone else had the sense to avoid. Because dying by his hand had to be better than what waited for her outside. And maybe, just maybe, a man everyone feared might be the only one brave enough to say yes. Maria stopped at the edge of his table, her crutches planted on either side of her trembling frame. Up close, he was even more terrifying. All sharp angles and controlled violence, tattoos crawling up his neck like dark vines, hands that had ended lives resting casually on the polished wood. The nightclub went silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the music seemed to lower, as if the DJ sensed the moment's danger. Everyone knew Jack Pearson's reputation. 47 confirmed kills. No mercy. No second chances. Men twice her size gave him a wide berth, and here she was, bleeding, broken, desperate, about to disturb his peace. "Can I sit with you?" Her voice cracked on the words, barely audible over her hammering heart. "Please. Just for a minute." This is how it ends, Jack thought, looking at her. This is the thing that destroys me. He saw it all in an instant. Her youth, maybe 22 at most. The terror in her eyes mixing with something fiercer. A refusal to quit even when logic screamed surrender. The torn dress revealing a stage costume beneath. Silk meant for spotlights now stained with blood and street grime. The prosthetic leg, the trembling hands, the desperate courage it took to approach a man like him. She was everything his world would devour. Everything he should turn away. But his body moved without permission. He stood. The room gasped, an actual audible intake of breath from hardened criminals who thought they'd seen everything. Jack Pearson standing for anyone was unheard of. Jack Pearson showing deference was impossible. Yet here he was, removing his leather jacket with deliberate care, stepping around the table. He draped it over her shoulders, covering her torn dress, the weight of it warm from his body heat. His fingers brushed her collarbone for just a second. Long enough to feel her shaking, not long enough to frighten. "Sit," he said, his voice rough but certain. "You're safe now." The words landed like a bomb in the silent club. Maria stared at him, shock replacing terror. He pulled out the chair, waited until she lowered herself into it with the practiced movements of someone who'd learned to navigate the world with a body that no longer quite cooperated. He didn't hover, didn't rush her, just gave her the space to settle. Once she was seated, Jack turned to face the room. His eyes found 2 of his men at the bar. Marcus and Tony, both trained killers who'd been with him for years. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. 3 men assaulted her 6 blocks from here. Find them. His tone carried the weight of an execution order. Bring them to me. Alive. The men were moving before he finished speaking. The club erupted in shocked whispers, conversations resuming in hushed tones laced with disbelief. Jack Pearson protecting a stranger. Jack Pearson showing mercy. The world had just tilted on its axis. Jack sat across from her, studying her face with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't. He raised one finger, a casual gesture that brought a waiter scrambling. "First aid kit. Water. Whatever food the kitchen has ready. And make it fast." The waiter disappeared. Jack's dark eyes catalogued everything. The way her hands trembled against the table, the dissociation creeping into her gaze, the pain she was trying to hide. He'd seen enough violence to recognize shock when it presented itself. She was holding on by a thread. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Maria." The word came out barely above a whisper. Something cracked inside Jack's chest, a sensation he hadn't felt in 23 years, not since Elena died in his arms because loving him had painted a target on her back. He'd sworn then never to care about anyone again. Emotion was weakness. Attachment was suicide. And yet this girl, this terrified, broken, impossibly brave girl, had just reached into his chest and touched something he'd thought was dead. The first aid kit arrived. Jack opened it himself, pulling out antiseptic and gauze. His movements were surprisingly gentle as he cleaned the cut on her temple. His tattooed hands steady despite the violence they'd committed. "What happened to your leg?" he asked. Not with pity. Not with the clinical curiosity of someone assessing damage. But with genuine care, as if her answer actually mattered. And with that simple question, Maria's carefully constructed walls shattered completely. The words came like a hemorrhage. 14 months of silence breaking all at once. "I was a ballet prodigy," Maria whispered, staring at Jack's tattooed hands as he cleaned her wounds. "Or that's what they called me. Prima ballerina at 21. Full scholarship with the Metropolitan Ballet Company. My debut performance was supposed to change everything." Her voice cracked. Jack said nothing, just continued his careful work, giving her the space to break. The stage collapsed during rehearsal. I remember the groaning, wood splintering beneath my feet. Alex was spinning me in our final lift, his hands so sure, so certain. Then the world just dropped away. She closed her eyes, but the memory played anyway. I was trapped for 90 minutes. Debris crushing my leg. I could feel it, the bones turning to powder, the warmth of my own blood pooling. Alex was screaming above me, but not for help. He kept shouting, "Why didn't you check the rigging? Why didn't you check?" Like it was my fault. Like I'd destroyed us both. Jack's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. They had to amputate below the knee. I woke up in a hospital bed, and Alex was gone. No note. No goodbye. Just gone. He told the company directors I'd been negligent, that I should have verified the stage integrity. They believed him. Her laugh was bitter, broken. Scholarship revoked. Evicted from company housing. Career over before it began. I was 21 years old, and my entire life just ended. 14 months, she continued, her voice dropping to barely audible. 14 months of poverty. Shame. Learning to walk again. Learning to survive in a body that doesn't work the way it used to. Waitressing jobs that won't hire me because I'm unreliable. Rent I can't pay. A prosthetic I had to beg charity clinics for. She finally looked up at Jack, tears streaming down her face. Tonight those men cornered me because they thought I was easy prey. A crippled girl alone. And they were right. I am easy prey. I'm broken, Jack. I'm 22 years old and I'm completely broken. Jack set down the gauze. His dark eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that should have frightened her but didn't. "You're a survivor," he said, his voice rough and certain. "That makes you dangerous." Maria blinked. "What? You lost everything. Your body, your career, your partner, your home. And you're still here. Still fighting. Still refusing to quit even when 3 men hunted you through the streets." He leaned forward slightly. "That's not broken, Maria. That's dangerous. You terrify weak men like your ex-boyfriend because your strength makes their cowardice visible." Something shifted in her chest. She wiped her tears, her gaze falling to the intricate tattoos covering his arms. "What about you? What made you this?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried decades of buried pain. "I was 12 when my father was murdered. Execution style in our kitchen, while I hid in the pantry and listened to him beg for his life. My uncle took me in, raised me in this world, taught me that emotion was weakness, that caring about anyone would get them killed." He traced one of the tattoos, a serpent coiled around a dagger. 30 years of violence. 30 years of being a weapon. I've built an empire on fear and corpses, and I haven't felt human since I was a child. His eyes met hers again. "Until you asked if you could sit with me. Bleeding, terrified, refusing to surrender. You made me feel something I thought was dead. You're the first person in decades who's made me feel anything other than empty." The air between them crackled with something raw and dangerous. "I'm taking you to the hospital," Jack said, standing. "I'm paying your bills. And I'm assigning protection to your building. Those men won't touch you again." "Jack, I can't." "You're not asking. I'm telling you." His tone left no room for argument. Hours later, after the hospital, after the bills were settled, after he'd stationed Marcus and Tony outside her rundown apartment building, Jack sat in his car across the street. Her window glowed on the third floor, a single light in the darkness. He should leave. He should walk away from this girl who was too young, too innocent, too good for his blood-soaked world. "She's 22. I'm 42. This is wrong." But his hands wouldn't start the engine. His eyes wouldn't leave her window. "And I don't care." The truth settled over him like a death sentence. He was already obsessed, already planning how to keep her safe, already imagining a future he had no right to want. "I'm already lost." And for the first time in 30 years, Jack Pearson didn't feel empty. 2 weeks later, Maria stormed into Jack's club like a hurricane with a prosthetic leg and fury in her eyes. She found him in the same VIP section, the same corner booth where her life had changed. He looked up from a stack of papers, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, then pleasure, then careful neutrality. "Hospital bills paid," Maria snapped, slamming a folder onto his table. "Rent mysteriously current for 3 months. And 2 men following me everywhere I go. Why are you doing this?" "I didn't ask for your help." Jack leaned back, studying her. "You asked if you could sit with me. I said yes. That means you're under my protection. I don't need your charity. I'm not a child." "I know." His voice was calm, maddeningly patient. "You're a 22-year-old survivor living in a war zone. Let me help. This isn't protection." Her hands trembled with rage. "This is control. This is making sure you survive. There's a difference. I've been surviving just fine." Jack stood, closing the distance between them. "Surviving isn't living, Maria." The words hit harder than any blow. She stepped back, hating how much she wanted to lean into him instead. "You can't just insert yourself into my life like this. You don't own me." "I'm not trying to own you." His voice dropped lower. "I'm trying to keep you alive. Those men who attacked you, they work for people I've crossed. You became a target the moment you sat with me." The guilt in his eyes was raw, unguarded. Maria's anger deflated. "So this is your fault?" "Yes." They stood in charged silence. Finally, she sighed and sank into the booth. "I want to teach dance to disabled kids. That's my dream. Not charity cases, real classes. Showing them their bodies aren't limitations." Jack sat across from her, and something in his expression softened. "Tell me more." Hours dissolved. She described adaptive choreography, the studio she'd need, the hope of turning tragedy into purpose. He told her about his childhood before violence, a father who taught him chess, a mother who died when he was 8, the boy he'd been before blood rewrote his story. The connection between them deepened despite both fighting it, despite the 20 years separating them, despite everything screaming this was impossible. When Maria finally rose to leave, she paused at the edge of his table. "The stage accident anniversary is coming up. 14 months. I always go to the old theater and—" She didn't finish. Couldn't. But Jack understood. His eyes held hers with an intensity that promised everything and nothing. "I know," he said quietly. Maria nodded and walked away, feeling his gaze follow her like a physical touch. Behind her, Jack was already planning to be there. The abandoned theater smelled of rot and forgotten dreams. Maria picked the lock on the side door, a skill poverty had taught her, and slipped inside. Dust particles floated through broken windows, caught in moonlight that seemed to accuse rather than illuminate. The stage was exactly as she remembered. Collapsed center section. Splintered wood. Dark stains that might have been her blood or just decay. 14 months, and nothing had changed except her. She climbed onto the intact edge of the stage, her prosthetic scraping against wood that had once held her end point. The silence was suffocating. "I should have died here," she whispered to the emptiness. "Alex was right. I should have checked the rigging. This is my fault. Your boyfriend was a coward." Maria's head snapped up. Jack emerged from the shadows near the orchestra pit, his presence both impossible and inevitable. "You remembered," she breathed. "I remember everything about you." He moved closer but didn't climb onto the stage. "You were 21, Maria. Checking structural integrity wasn't your responsibility. It was the theaters, the companies, the directors. Alex blamed you because weak men always need someone else to carry their guilt." "You don't understand." Her voice cracked. I felt it shifting during rehearsal. The way the boards flexed wrong. And I didn't say anything because I didn't want to seem difficult, didn't want to slow down rehearsal, didn't want to be human. Jack finished quietly. "You felt something might be wrong and second-guessed yourself. That's not negligence. That's being a scared 21-year-old who'd been taught to doubt her instincts." She pressed her palms against the stage, feeling the grooves where wood had split. "I lost everything here." Jack climbed onto the stage then sat beside her, not touching, just present. The space between them hummed with unspoken things. "You survived for a reason," he said. "Maybe it's teaching those kids to dance. Maybe it's something else. But you're here, Maria. You're still here." His hand moved slowly, deliberately, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his tattooed fingers closed around hers. The touch was electric, boundary-crossing, intimate in a way that made her breath catch. "Why do you care?" The question burst out of her, raw and desperate. "You barely know me. I'm just some broken girl who wandered into your club. You're Jack Pearson. You could have anyone. Why waste time on me?" Jack turned to face her fully, his dark eyes holding hers with an intensity that felt like being seen for the first time. "Because I've been dead inside for 30 years, he said, each word deliberate. "I've killed, controlled, dominated, built an empire on fear. I've had power and money and respect, and none of it made me feel anything. And then you stumbled into my club, bloodied and terrified and refusing to quit, and asked if you could sit with me." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "I felt human for the first time since I was 12 years old. You make me want to be more than a weapon. You make me want to be someone worthy of the courage you showed that night." Maria's tears fell freely now. "I'm 22. You're 42. I know." His voice was rough. 20 years between us. You should run from me. From my world, my violence, everything I am. But I'm asking you not to." They sat in the ruins of her past until sunrise painted the broken theater in shades of gold and pink. Her hand stayed in his, small and scarred against tattooed knuckles that had ended lives. They didn't speak. Didn't need to. When he finally drove her home, morning light harsh against his windshield, Jack's thoughts circled the same impossible truth. She's too young. This is wrong. My world will destroy her. But his hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. I'm going to ask her out. And if she says no, I'll ask again. Because walking away isn't an option anymore. He watched her climb the stairs to her apartment, watched her window light up, watched until he was certain she was safe, and knew with absolute certainty that he was already lost. Jack stood in the doorway of her makeshift dance studio, holding lilies. He'd researched, learned they were her favorite. Maria turned from the bar, surprise flickering across her face. "Jack, have dinner with me." The words came out rougher than he intended. A real date. Not protection, not business. Just us. Her expression shuddered. "You're 42. I'm 22. You're a killer. I'm a dance teacher. This doesn't work. Age is just." "No." She stepped back. "I'm too young, too broken, too poor. You deserve someone from your world." She walked away, disappearing into the back room. Jack stood alone, still holding the lilies. Finally, he set them on the bar and left. But he didn't give up. 6 weeks later, Maria was cornered in an alley by loan sharks demanding payment on predatory interest. The lead man grabbed her arm, twisting. "You owe $3,000, sweetheart. Time to pay up." His grip tightened, pain shooting up her arm. "We know you got a sugar daddy now. That Mafia guy. So where's our money?" "I don't have it," Maria gasped. "Please." "Then we'll take it out of your hide." The man's fist pulled back. Then Jack was there, moving like violence personified. The man's arm snapped with a sickening crack before he could scream. Jack's elbow connected with another's face, dropping him instantly. The third loan shark stumbled backward, hands raised. "Run," Jack said quietly. The man ran. When the silence settled, Jack knelt beside her trembling form. Blood stained his knuckles, not his own. His eyes scanned her for injuries with the precision of someone who knew exactly what damage looked like. "Let me take care of you," he said, his voice rough. "Let me in." "I can't." Her voice broke. "I can't be the reason you stay in this violent life. You deserve a chance to be good. Maria. You could walk away from all of this. Find peace. But not if you're with me. I'm a target now because of that first night. You said it yourself." Tears streamed down her face. "Every time you save me, you get pulled deeper into the darkness. I won't do that to you." She stood, her prosthetic scraping against the concrete. "Thank you for saving me. Again. But this has to stop." She walked away despite everything in her screaming to stay. Despite the safety she felt in his presence. Despite the way her heart broke with each step. Behind her, Jack remained kneeling in the alley, watching her leave, his bloodied hands clenched into fists. 8 weeks later, Maria came home to chaos. Her apartment door hung open, the lock shattered. Inside, furniture overturned, drawers dumped, her few possessions scattered like casualties. But worse than the destruction were the photographs. Dozens of them, spread across her floor like accusations. Photos of her teaching at the studio, walking to the grocery store, sleeping in her bed, taken through her window. Medical records, bank statements, protection schedules with Marcus and Tony's shifts detailed, surveillance reports tracking her every movement for months. Maria's hands shook as she picked up one photo after another. Someone had been watching, documenting, planning. The panic attack hit like a freight train. Her chest tightened, room spinning. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't. Her phone. She grabbed it, fingers trembling so badly she could barely dial. "Maria." Jack's voice, sharp with immediate concern. "My apartment." She could barely form words. "Someone broke in. Photos. Everywhere. They've been watching me. Jack, they know everything. Stay on the phone. I'm 2 minutes away." She heard his car engine roar to life through the phone. Heard him barking orders to someone. Marcus, probably. Heard the controlled fury in his voice as he told someone else to secure the building perimeter. "Keep talking to me," Jack said. "What do the photos show?" "Me. Just me. Teaching. Walking. Sleeping." Her voice cracked. "My medical records. Protection schedules. Bank statements showing the payments you made. Jack, whoever did this knows everything. I'm pulling up now." Seconds later, he was there. He took in the scene with trained efficiency. The broken door, the ransacked apartment, Maria surrounded by surveillance photos like she was drowning in evidence of her own vulnerability. He knelt beside her, his hands finding hers. "Breathe with me. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. She tried. Failed. Tried again. "You've been obsessed with me," she whispered when she could finally speak. "Why?" The question hung in the destroyed apartment. Jack's walls, 30 years of carefully constructed armor, crumbled completely. "Because I love you." The confession tore out of him like a bullet he'd been holding in his chest for months. Raw. Unguarded. Devastating in its honesty. "I've loved you since you asked if you could sit with me. I've loved you through every conversation, every time I watched you teach those kids with more grace than I've ever possessed. Every time you pushed me away, trying to save me from myself." He moved closer, his voice rough with emotion. I'm 42 years old. I have 47 kills on my conscience. I'm covered in tattoos from a life you should run from. You're 22, beautiful, good, everything light in this world. His hands cradled her face with devastating gentleness. And I know it's wrong. The age gap, my violence, everything I am. Society says I'm too old for you. That I'm a monster who'll destroy you. That this can never work. But you make me want to be someone different. Someone worthy of you. You make me feel human. And I know I have no right to ask this, but... Yes. The word escaped before fear could stop it. What? Yes. Maria's hands covered his, tears streaming down her face. God help me, yes. I'll have dinner with you. Yes to whatever this is. Yes to taking the risk. Yes to you. She'd seen past the killer to the 12-year-old boy who'd lost his father. Seen the human beneath the weapon. Seen the man who'd stood for her when everyone else turned away. Alex's voice echoed in her memory, but different now, gentler. You think you died on that stage. You didn't. Stop punishing yourself. Live. Jack closed the distance between them, his tattooed hands cradling her face. When their lips met, it was desperate and healing and dangerous all at once. 20 years disappeared. Broken bodies became whole. The age gap and violence and impossibility of them dissolved into the simple truth that they'd found each other in the wreckage. I love you too, Maria whispered against his lips. I've been fighting it for weeks. Telling myself all the reasons it's wrong. But I love you. Jack pulled her closer, holding her like she was the only solid thing in his world. We'll figure out who did this. I'll keep you safe. I know, she said. That's what scares me. That's what makes this real. They stayed on the floor of her destroyed apartment, holding each other, knowing they'd just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Neither of them knew that the photos had been taken by Rico. Neither of them knew the family council already had the evidence they needed. Neither of them knew their happiness had just started ticking toward an expiration date. 4 months became stolen paradise. Secret dinners in hole-in-the-wall restaurants where no one from his old life would find them. Maria learned Jack liked his coffee black with 2 sugars, that he burned toast every single time, that he had nightmares about his father's murder that left him shaking in the dark. Jack learned she liked her pasta carbonara without pepper, that she hummed while she stretched, that she cried during animated movies but stayed stone-faced through horror films. His penthouse became their sanctuary. Maria's ballet shoes appeared by his bed like she was claiming territory. Her toothbrush in his bathroom. Her books on his shelves. Small pieces of her invading his space until it wasn't his anymore. It was theirs. This is ridiculous, she laughed one morning, watching him attempt breakfast. You can break a man's arm in 3 places, but you can't crack an egg? Different skill sets, Jack muttered, fishing eggshell out of the bowl. She moved behind him, her hands covering his, guiding them. Firm tap. Not a murder. Everything I do is a murder. Not this. She kissed his shoulder blade, right over the tattoo of a phoenix. This is creation. The eggs came out perfect. They ate them in bed, laughing about nothing, about everything. At her studio, Jack held the bar steady while she demonstrated movements to kids who saw her prosthetic as proof that limitations were negotiable. A 7-year-old boy with one arm watched Maria balance and point. Does it hurt? He asked, pointing at her prosthetic. Sometimes, Maria admitted. But pain means I'm still here. Still fighting. Still dancing. Jack watched from the corner, his heart doing something it hadn't done in 30 years, swelling with pride. This woman, this beautiful, broken, impossibly strong woman, was his. After class, a mother approached him. You're Jack Pearson, aren't you? He tensed, ready for accusations, for fear, for the reputation that preceded him. Thank you, she said instead. My daughter has cerebral palsy. She'd given up on dance. On believing her body could do beautiful things. Maria gave that back to her. And I see the way you look at her. Like she hung the moon. She deserves that. Jack's throat tightened. She deserves better than me. Maybe, the woman said gently. But she chose you anyway. Don't waste it. He taught Maria to throw a proper punch. They stood in his private gym, his hands correcting her form. Thumb outside your fist. Power from your hips, not your arm. She swung. The bag barely moved. Again. I'm a dancer, not a fighter. You're both. His hands settled on her hips, adjusting her stance. Your body knows how to generate power. Just redirect it. She tried again. Better. Good. Now imagine it's Alex. Standing there. Blaming you. Making you carry his guilt. Her next punch rocked the bag. And the next. And the next. Jack caught her hands before she could hurt herself. There she is. Dangerous Maria. She turned in his arms, breathless and alive. Teach me more. Why? Because your world is dangerous. And I won't be helpless in it. So he taught her. Pressure points. Escape holds. How to use her prosthetic as a weapon. The hard edge perfect for striking. How to stay calm when fear screamed. She was a quick study. Graceful violence. Dance and combat blending until they were indistinguishable. They built a life in shadows, stealing moments between his security work and her classes. Movie nights where they fell asleep tangled together. Lazy Sunday mornings. Dancing in his kitchen at 2 a.m. because she needed to move and he needed to watch her shine. What are we doing? Maria asked one night, her head on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. Living, Jack said simply. For the first time in both our lives, we're actually living. People will talk. About the age gap. About your past. Let them. Your family. Doesn't know. And won't. This is ours. Just ours. But secrets don't stay buried forever. Not when someone's watching. Rico had been documenting everything. Every dinner. Every touch. Every moment of stolen happiness. Building a case against Jack with photographs that would prove what everyone suspected. Jack Pearson had found his weakness. And weakness in their world was a death sentence. The photographs spread across the conference table like accusations. Jack and Maria at a restaurant. His hand covering hers. Her leaving his building at dawn, wearing his shirt. Him watching her teach, expression soft in a way that made him unrecognizable. Jack Pearson, the Reaper. Looking at a 22-year-old girl like she was salvation. 4 months of surveillance. Documented in brutal clarity. Rico stood at the head of the table. Satisfaction radiating from him like heat. The entire family council filled the room. 12 made men, witnesses to Jack's downfall. Uncle Victor at the head. Cousin Marco. Underboss Vincent. Soldiers and captains who'd killed alongside Jack for decades. All of them staring at evidence of his betrayal. Victor picked up a photo, Jack and Maria dancing in his penthouse. Curtains open, too lost in each other to remember to hide. His face was carved from stone. Who is this girl? Maria Delgado, Rico answered before Jack could speak. His voice dripped with triumph. 22 years old. Crippled dance teacher on welfare. He's been seeing her for 4 months. Secretly. She has a prosthetic leg, Marco added, studying another photo. Lost it in some ballet accident. She's nobody. Nothing. And he's risking everything for her. Vincent's fist slammed on the table. We have the Calabrese family breathing down our necks. The Russians pushing into our territory. The feds building Rico cases. And our best enforcer is playing house with a child. She's not a child, Jack said, his voice dangerously low. I turned to him. She's 22. An adult. And what I do in my personal life. There is no personal life. Victor's voice cracked like a whip. Not for you. Not in this family. Everything you do reflects on us. Everyone you touch becomes leverage. And you, he held up the photo of them kissing. You handed our enemies a loaded gun. Rico leaned forward, smirking. How long until the Calabrese family finds out? How long until they grab her off the street and send you pieces? Jack's hands clenched into fists under the table. Anyone who touches her dies screaming. You can't protect her, Vincent said flatly. You're 42, Jack. Getting slower. Softer. And she's made you vulnerable. Every rival we have now knows exactly how to break you. Cousin Marco laughed. Cruel and sharp. You're risking your inheritance, your position, your life. For what? A girl young enough to be your daughter? A cripple who'll leave the second the money dries up. Shut your mouth. Jack's voice dropped to Arctic cold. Or what? You'll defend her honor. Marco spread his hands mockingly. Face it, Jack. You've become a joke. The Reaper, brought low by a pair of pretty eyes and daddy issues. Jack moved. 1 second he was seated, the next he had Marco slammed against the wall, forearm across his throat. Say another word about her. Please. Give me a reason. Enough. Victor's roar filled the room. Let him go, Jack. Jack held Marco for 3 more seconds, long enough to see real fear in his cousin's eyes, then released him. Marco stumbled back, coughing. Victor's expression was granite. My office. Now. The private office felt like a tomb. Victor poured 2 whiskeys, set one in front of Jack. Neither man drank. She's young enough to be your daughter, Jack. Victor's voice was almost kind, which made it worse. 20 years between you. A disabled girl with no connections, no money, no use to us. What are you thinking? I'm thinking she's the only real thing in my life. Victor's fist hit the desk. Real gets you killed. Elena was real. Remember how that ended. Jack flinched. Elena. His first love. Dead at 23 because loving him had painted a target on her back. The Vitali family had taken her. Tortured her for 3 days to draw Jack out. When he'd finally found her, she'd begged him to let her die. He'd held her while she bled out. Felt her last breath against his neck. 19 years ago, and it still felt like yesterday. You were 24 then, Victor continued. Young, strong, sharp. You barely survived losing Elena. You went on a killing spree that nearly started a war. Killed 6 men with your bare hands. We had to pull you back from the edge. He leaned forward. You're 42 now. Older. Softer. More vulnerable. They'll do worse to this one because they know it'll destroy you completely this time. I can protect her. You can't. Victor's voice was flat. Certain. You're already compromised. The moment you started caring, you handed your enemies a weapon. Every crew we've ever crossed now has your weakness on file. Photos, addresses, schedules. Rico made sure of that by leaving these on the table. Jack's stomach dropped. He leaked them. He leaked them, Victor confirmed. To everyone. The Russians. The Calabrese family. The Vitales. Even some of the cops on our payroll. By tomorrow, every criminal in 3 states will know that Jack Pearson has a 22-year-old girlfriend he's obsessed with. The room spun. Jack gripped the edge of the desk. So I'm giving you 72 hours, Victor said. Choose. Her or the family. Her or your empire. Her or the only name you've ever had. That's not a choice. It's the only choice. Victor's voice went cold. You walk out for her, you're dead to us. No inheritance, no protection, no second chances. We cut you off completely. And without our protection, your enemies will hunt you both. Every rival who's ever wanted you dead will see her as the fastest route to your throat. He paused, letting the weight settle. Is she worth dying for, Jack? Is a 22-year-old girl you've known for 4 months worth throwing away 30 years of blood and loyalty? Worth giving up everything I've built for you? Everything you've built for yourself? The silence stretched like a blade between them. Jack thought of Maria teaching disabled kids to dance. Thought of her laugh when he burned toast. Thought of the way she traced his tattoos like reading a map back to his humanity. Thought of her tears when she'd finally said yes. He thought of 30 years of violence. Of kills that haunted him. Of an empire built on fear and corpses. Of being called the Reaper, like he was death incarnate and not a man who'd once been a scared 12-year-old boy watching his father die. Is she worth dying for? Victor repeated. Jack met his uncle's eyes. Yes, he said quietly. Victor's expression cracked, just for a second, revealing something that might have been grief. I raised you, trained you, made you what you are, and you'd throw it all away for a girl you barely know. She's not what I'm throwing it away for, Jack said. I'm throwing it away because I finally have a reason to be something other than a killer. Because she sees me, not the Reaper, not Jack Pearson the Enforcer. Just Jack. Just me. You're a fool. Maybe. But I'm a fool who gets to be human for the first time in 30 years. Victor stood, moving to the window. His reflection looked old. Tired. 72 hours. Decide what kind of man you want to be. Jack stood to leave. Jack. Victor's voice stopped him. If you walk out that door, if you choose her over us, I can't protect you from what's coming. The Calabrese family has already put out feelers. The Russians too. They're circling. And without the family's protection. I know. You'll be a target for the rest of your life. So will she. Every day you're together, you'll be looking over your shoulder. Every noise will be a threat. Every stranger a potential killer. That's not living, Jack. That's surviving. And eventually your luck runs out. Jack turned back. Then I'll take whatever time we have. However long it lasts. Because one real day with her is worth more than 30 years of this. Victor's shoulders sagged. Get out. Come back in 72 hours with your decision. Jack left the office. The photographs still spread across the conference table like crime scene evidence. His phone was already in his hand. Fingers moving before his brain caught up. We need to talk. Now. He had to tell her everything. What choosing her would cost. The empire, the protection, the life he'd built over 30 years. What his world would demand of them both. The enemies who would hunt them. The danger she'd face just by loving him. And why, despite all of it, he was going to choose her anyway. Because some things were worth dying for. She was one of them. Maria opened her apartment door to find Jack standing there, looking like a man facing execution. His eyes were hollow. His shoulders carried weight that hadn't been there that morning when he'd kissed her goodbye. Something had shattered in the few hours since she'd seen him. Jack. What's wrong? He walked in without speaking, moved past her like a ghost, and sank heavily onto her worn couch. For a long moment, he just stared at his hands. Those tattooed, scarred hands that had killed 47 people and held her with devastating gentleness. Tell me, Maria said, sitting beside him. So he did. He told her everything. The surveillance photos Rico had taken and leaked. The family council meeting. Every rival gang now knowing about her. The 72-hour ultimatum. The real body count is 47, he said, voice raw. Not several or many. 47 lives I've personally ended. Some deserved it. Some. His jaw clenched. Some were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Orders I followed because that's what I was trained to do. He described the empire's scope. Not just criminal activities, but specifics. Trafficking routes, extortion networks, violence spanning 3 states. Protection rackets bleeding dry small businesses. Drug distribution pipelines. Bodies disposed of in ways that ensured they'd never be found. I've done things that would make you sick, Jack continued. Things I justified by telling myself I was protecting the family, maintaining order, enforcing respect. But the truth is simpler. I'm a killer, Maria. That's what I am. What I've always been since I was 12 years old. Maria listened, her face draining of color with each revelation. But she didn't pull away. The family council gave me 72 hours to choose, he finished. You or everything I've ever known. You or my inheritance, my protection, my name. You or 30 years of blood and loyalty. The apartment went silent except for the distant sounds of the city. Sirens, traffic, life continuing while there's hung in the balance. You're asking me to let you give up everything. Maria's voice cracked. Your family, your money, your power, your entire identity. Everything you've built for 30 years. Yes. You'll resent me." Tears welled in her eyes. 6 months from now, a year from now, when the money's gone and we're struggling and every day is dangerous, you'll look at me, 22, disabled, the reason you lost your legacy. And you'll hate me for it. Jack moved to kneel in front of her, his hands finding hers. My family didn't give me a legacy. They gave me a prison built on corpses. They took a traumatized 12-year-old boy and turned him into a weapon. Jack, you're the first person in 30 years who's made me feel human. His grip tightened. The first person who's looked at me and seen something other than a killer. You saw a man who could be good, who could be better, who deserved redemption. I can't be worth that sacrifice, Maria whispered. I'm not brave enough to carry that weight. Every day I'll know what you gave up for me. Every struggle we face, every danger, every moment of fear. It'll be because you chose me. I can't. You carried yourself through stage collapse, Jack interrupted. Through amputation, rehabilitation, poverty, assault. You rebuilt your entire life from nothing. You learned to walk again, to dance again, to dream again. You're the bravest person I've ever met. He pulled her down to the floor, holding her as she started to break. You don't have to carry this weight alone. We'll carry it together. Whatever comes next, the danger, the struggle, the fear, we face it as us. Not you. Not me. Us. Maria sobbed against his chest, her fingers clutching his shirt like a lifeline. I'm so scared. Me too, Jack admitted. I'm terrified. Because choosing you means choosing vulnerability. It means admitting I care about something more than survival. It means walking away from everything I've known and trusting that what we have is real enough, strong enough to survive what's coming. What if it's not? What if we break? Then we break together. He tilted her face up, forcing her to meet his eyes. But I don't think we will. I think we're stronger than we know. I think we've both survived impossible things. And I think we deserve a chance to build something good from all the wreckage. They stayed on that floor for 72 hours. Barely eating. Barely sleeping. Just holding each other in the eye of the approaching storm. They talked through every scenario. Life without his family's protection. The enemies who would come. The financial struggle ahead. Security measures. Exit strategies. What they'd do if, when, things got dangerous. We could run, Maria suggested at hour 40. Leave the city. Change our names. Start over somewhere they'd never find us. They'd find us, Jack said. Eventually. And running means always looking over our shoulders. I'd rather face it head-on. At least then I know where the threats are coming from. At hour 56, exhaustion and fear gave way to something else. Jack pulled her close, his lips finding hers with desperate intensity. They made love on her worn carpet, holding each other like the world was ending. Maybe it was. I love you, Maria whispered on the third night, hour 71. Her voice raw from crying and talking and making promises they both hoped they could keep. Jack pressed his forehead to hers. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us. I'm choosing to finally be human instead of a weapon. Whatever happens next, I want you to know, this is the first real choice I've ever made. Everything before was just following orders. This is me. Are you sure? He thought of his uncle's warning. The leaked photographs. The enemies already circling. The danger he was dragging her into. The money and power he was walking away from. The only family he'd ever known. Then he thought of her laugh. Her strength. The way she'd asked if she could sit with him, bleeding and terrified and refusing to quit. The way she'd made him feel human for the first time in 30 years. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Hour 72 arrived like a deadline. Jack showered in her cramped bathroom, dressed in the same clothes he'd worn when he arrived, looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. This was it. The moment everything changed. Maria stood in the doorway, wearing one of his old shirts, her hair a mess, eyes red from crying. Beautiful. Terrified. His Last chance, she said quietly. You can still walk away. Choose the family. Choose safety. Choose. Jack crossed the space between them and kissed her. Hard. Final. I choose you, he said against her lips. Now. Tomorrow. Always. I choose you. He grabbed his jacket, his phone, and headed for the door. Jack. Maria's voice stopped him. Come back to me. He turned, memorizing her face, just in case this was the last time he saw her before everything went to hell. Always, he promised. Then he walked out to face the family council and burn down his entire life. The family council chamber felt like a coliseum. Every made man had assembled. 20 witnesses to his fall. Uncle Victor sat at the head of the table, face carved from granite. Rico stood behind him, smirking like he'd already won. Cousin Marco. Underboss Vincent. Soldiers and captains who'd killed alongside Jack for decades. All of them waiting for his decision. The photographs still littered the conference table. Evidence of his betrayal. Proof of his weakness. Jack's eyes skimmed over them without flinching. Maria laughing. Maria sleeping. Maria teaching kids to dance. Each photo a moment of stolen happiness now weaponized against them. Victor's voice cut through the silence. 72 hours are up. What's your decision, Jack? Jack stood slowly, surveying the room. The empire. The legacy. 30 years of blood and control. Men who'd killed for him, with him, beside him. The only family he'd ever known since his father died in that kitchen when he was 12. This was it. The moment he'd been building toward since Maria asked if she could sit with him. I choose her. His voice carried across the silence. Clear. Certain. Unbreakable. I choose Maria. I choose humanity over monstrosity. I choose love over power. I choose to finally be a man instead of a weapon. The room erupted. Rico's laugh was cruel and sharp. You're throwing away an empire for a crippled girl? A child. She's not a child, Jack said, his voice dangerously low. She's 22 years old. A woman who survived more than most of you combined. Who's rebuilt her entire life from nothing. Who has more courage in her little finger than this entire room combined. Marco slammed his fist on the table. She'll leave when the money's gone. Women like her always do. You think she loves you? She loves the protection. The security. The lifestyle. Wait until you're broke and see how fast she runs. Then I'll know she was never mine to begin with, Jack replied evenly. But I don't believe that. Because she said yes when I had already told her what it would cost. She said yes knowing the danger. She said yes understanding the sacrifice. That's not a woman chasing money. That's a woman choosing love. Vincent's voice cut through the chaos. This is what weakness looks like. This is how empires fall. One man choosing his heart over his head. One man putting a girl above his family. This is pathetic. Maybe, Jack agreed. Or maybe it's finally being human. Maybe it's choosing to build something instead of destroy. Maybe it's deciding that 30 years of killing is enough and I deserve a chance at redemption. The room went silent. Victor raised one hand. Instant quiet. His eyes bore into Jack. 30 years of history, of training, of a family bond that was about to shatter. You walk out that door, you're nothing, Victor said flatly. No name, no money, no soldiers, no family. Every dollar you've earned goes back to the family. Every connection you've made gets severed. Every favor you're owed gets erased. You leave here with nothing but the clothes on your back. I know. The Calabrese family already has a bounty on her. 50,000 from Maria Delgado, alive. They want to use her to draw you out, make you watch while they break her, then kill you both as an example. The Russians are interested too. And the Vitales, they remember Elena. They want to finish what they started 19 years ago. Jack's jaw clenched, but he didn't respond. You'll be hunted, Vincent added. Every day. Every hour. No safe houses. No backup. No resources. Just you and her against everyone who's ever wanted you dead. And there are a lot of them, Jack. You've made a lot of enemies. I'll handle it. Rico sneered. You're 42. Past your prime. Slowing down. Getting soft. You think you can protect her? You couldn't protect Elena. Jack moved. Covered the distance between them in 2 strides. Had Rico by the throat before anyone could react. Say her name again. I dare you. Jack. Victor's voice cracked like a whip. Let him go. Jack held Rico for 3 more seconds, long enough to see real terror in his eyes, then released him. Rico stumbled back, gasping. She's young enough to be your daughter, Jack. Victor's voice was almost gentle now, which made it worse. 20 years between you. When you're 60, she'll be 40. When you're 70, she'll be 50. You'll be an old man and she'll still be young. Have you thought about that? About what happens when she wakes up one day and realizes she wasted her youth on you? Every day, Jack admitted. I think about it every single day. The age gap. The difference in our lives. The fact that I'm dragging her into my mess. But I've also thought about the alternative. Walking away from the only person who's ever made me feel human. Living another 30 years as the Reaper, empty and violent and alone. He met his uncle's eyes. And I'd rather have 1 real year with her than a lifetime of empty power. Victor stood, the weight of decades in his movements. The room held its breath. She's a disabled dance teacher who works with disabled kids, Victor said quietly. No connections, no money, no use to us strategically. What does she bring to this table besides making you weak? She makes me better, Jack replied simply. She makes me want to be better. She took a killer and saw a man. Took a monster and found humanity. That's not weakness, Uncle. That's transformation. Transformation gets you killed in our world. Then I'd rather die transformed than live as a monster. The silence stretched like a blade. Victor's expression cracked, just for a moment, revealing grief, loss, and something that might have been pride mixed with regret. There's no coming back from this, Victor said finally. You walk out, you're dead to us. Dead to the family. Every bond we've built, every moment I raised you, every kill we shared, all of it gone. You'll be alone. I won't be alone, Jack said. I'll have Maria. And for the first time in my life, that's enough. Victor's eyes glistened. Just for a second. Then the moment passed and his face became stone again. Then go, Victor said. Walk out. Choose your girl over your blood. But know this, Jack. I loved you like a son. Raised you when no one else would. Made you what you are. And you're throwing it back in my face for a woman you've known for 4 months. You made me a killer, Jack said, his voice gentle but firm. She's making me a man. There's a difference. He picked up the single duffel bag he'd brought, everything he was taking from this life. Clothes. A few personal items. Nothing else. The rest, the money, the cars, the properties, the power, he was leaving behind. Goodbye, Uncle, Jack said. He walked toward the doors. No one tried to stop him. The silence was deafening. 20 killers watching their legend walk away for love. At the door, Jack paused. Looked back one last time. She's worth it, he said quietly. Every single one of you would understand if you'd ever felt what I feel when she looks at me. Like I'm not a monster. Like I'm just Jack. Just a man who deserves happiness. You'll die for this, Rico spat. Maybe, Jack agreed. But I'll die human. And that's more than I've been for 30 years. He walked out. The heavy doors closed behind him with terrible finality. The gates of the compound loomed ahead. Beyond them, the street. Freedom. Maria. A life that didn't involve blood and violence and fear. Behind him, his entire world. His family. His empire. His identity. Jack didn't look back. He walked through the gates as they closed behind him with a clang that sounded like a cell door. Or maybe like chains breaking. He stood on the street, a 42-year-old man with nothing but a duffel bag and a choice that felt like resurrection. His phone was already in his hand. Coming home. Maria's reply was instant. I'm here. I'm waiting. I love you. Jack climbed into his car, the last thing he owned from his old life. Started the engine. The rumble felt different now. Not the sound of power. The sound of freedom. He drove toward her studio. Toward poverty and uncertainty and danger. Toward a woman 20 years younger who'd seen him for what he could be instead of what he'd been. Drove toward a life that would be harder, scarier, more vulnerable than anything he'd ever known. And smiled. Lost everything. Never felt richer. "I've lost an empire," he said to the empty car, the smile breaking across his face wider. "And somehow, I've finally won." In the rearview mirror, the compound disappeared. With it, 30 years of violence, blood, and power. Ahead, Maria waited. And that was worth more than any empire ever could be. Jack Pearson, the Reaper, the killer, the monster, was dead. Just Jack, the man who chose love, was finally alive. "I've lost an empire," he said to the empty car, a smile breaking across his face. "And somehow, I've finally won." 6 months painted a different kind of portrait. Jack's hands that had broken necks and pulled triggers, now steadied the bar while a 7-year-old girl with cerebral palsy practiced her balance. His tattoos, once symbols of kills and territory, now just reminded him who he'd been before Maria taught him who he could become. The private security work paid enough to keep them fed. Barely. Their apartment was modest, cramped, nothing like his former penthouse. But Maria's ballet shoes sat honored on a shelf, and his old weapons stayed locked in a box he never opened. Money was tight. Threats came occasionally. Old enemies testing whether he'd fight back. He didn't. Just moved them to safety, called in favors from the few contacts who still answered. Maria's dance studio thrived. He'd built her a proper space with his last funds from the old life. Now he taught self-defense alongside her ballet classes, showing disabled kids that their bodies were weapons, not limitations. One night, tangled together in their second-hand bed, Maria asked the question that haunted her. "Do you regret it?" Jack turned to face her, his thumb tracing her jawline. "I regret nothing. I lost power. I gained a soul. You're not the cost, Maria. You're the prize." New Year's Eve arrived like a gift. Jack brought Maria back to the nightclub where everything began. Same VIP section, same corner booth. The space where she'd asked if she could sit, where he'd said the 2 words that changed both their lives. "1 year ago I was bleeding and terrified," Maria whispered, her hand finding his across the table. "1 year ago I was dead inside," Jack replied. "Now I'm alive." The bass pounded. Champagne flowed. They sat in their history, marveling at survival. Then she appeared. Young woman, maybe 19. Bruised cheek. Pregnant belly. Limping badly. She approached their table with the same desperate courage Maria had shown, terror and determination warring in her eyes. "Excuse me." Her voice shook. "Can I sit with you? Please. Just until my ex-boyfriend stops looking for me." Maria and Jack locked eyes across the table, saw themselves reflected in her desperation. The girl who'd fled attackers, the man who'd chosen mercy over violence. The cycle spinning forward. Together they answered. "Sit. You're safe now." Her name was Sophia. They bought her dinner. Jack made calls, contacted the few safe houses that still owed him favors, arranged protection, found resources. Maria shared her story, turning survival into hope, showing Sophia that broken wasn't the end. As they helped Sophia into a cab to the safe house, Jack pulled Maria close under the neon lights of the club entrance. "We did it," she whispered. "We became the people who save others." Jack kissed her forehead, watching the cab disappear into the night. "You saved me first. Now we get to pass it on." They walked home through the city streets, hand in hand. A former killer and a broken ballerina who'd both found redemption in the wreckage. Behind them, the nightclub pulsed with life. Ahead, their modest apartment waited. Proof that empires built on blood could be traded for something infinitely more valuable. Love. Purpose. Humanity. Jack Pearson had lost everything that made him feared, and gained everything that made him whole. We're at a crossroads, you and I. Right now, we need more subscribers to hit 1,000, a number that changes everything for small creators like me. YouTube starts taking us seriously. Our stories reach more people. But I need your help right now. If this story gripped you, moved you, made you feel something, subscribe. Smash that like button. And please tell me in the comments where in this incredible world you're watching from. I want to build a global community of story lovers, and it starts with you. Be part of this journey. Your action today determines whether this channel survives or fades away.